Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Lost Ark running on the i5-1135G7. Now this is currently running at 1080p with the lowest possible settings and with DirectX 11 as the render API. This is pretty much what the game defaulted to for me, and this is not a great gaming experience. The 1% lows are absolutely brutal, the averages are terrible, but the frame times are really the biggest indicator that this game is not running well. It is pretty much just struggling to render at these settings, and the game itself is just extremely demanding in some sections, and it can be surprising when it suddenly just starts to become super demanding. But overall 1080p is just completely out of the question, and even then DirectX 11 will increase your CPU usage noticeably compared to the X9. Really, it's not until we set the game to 720p, lowest possible settings with DirectX 9, that we get to the point where we're even remotely close to playable territory. And depending on the amount of enemies on screen, it's going to become a lag fest still, because look at those frame times. They are all over the place. They are just spiking up and down. So you see an average of 38, you think, oh, well, that can't be that bad. But those 1% lows and those frame times tell you the true story of how this plays. This is not going to be a smooth playable experience whatsoever, really. And it's going to be detrimental to the gameplay here. Now, I don't know how much that's going to really matter to you personally. I don't know if you're playing this for the story or if you're just in it for the gameplay. If you're in it for the gameplay, and that's literally why I'm here, I didn't care at all about the story. It felt way too anime for me. I really just did not enjoy playing the game like this whatsoever. The game is just super demanding. There will be sections suddenly where you will see the CPU usage spike to 100%, and it is in those moments where the frame times will spike up. Sometimes it'll be when loading in a cutscene, but other times you'll just get into random areas that are just going to start eating up the entirety of the CPU, and it seems to be a common occurrence with this game. I've looked into it. There has been a lot of reports of people just having really high CPU usage, and it's really affecting 4-core 8-thread CPUs. We're pretty much at this point at the end of the cycle for these 4-core CPUs. The 4 cores is really just becoming too much of a limiting factor in a lot of modern game releases, and it's going to make this CPU not age well at all. I would expect the, let's say like the 5500U from AMD to probably age more gracefully than this Intel CPU, and it's unfortunate that they decided to go with the 4 cores, but they really did not have the headroom to put in anything more and also have the iGPU there. It's really disappointing to see the performance numbers like this, but there's not really much more you can really do here other than just drop the resolution even more, and at that point there's really no point. The 1% lows are really just too terrible. The frame times are just too inconsistent and all over the place to really call this a good experience. I'm very curious to see how this is going to perform on the 5500U, if the CPU is going to help out, if the stronger GPU is going to help out. Really, the biggest issue and the biggest question that I have is whether or not the 8 gigabytes of RAM will be enough, because look at how much RAM we're using here. Almost 13 gigabytes of RAM are being used to run this game at 720p with the lowest possible settings at DirectX 9 API settings. So we're eating through a lot of the 16 gigabytes here just to play this game at the lowest settings that it's at. Now, games will over provision on RAM. If there's the headroom there, they will just use it. They'll just park it. They'll really won't even fully utilize it. It's kind of just there just in case. It's mostly just allocation. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the game needs this much RAM. It's just the fact that since it's there, it's going to try to use it, and I'm very curious to see if the 8 gigabytes is going to be a detriment here or not. That's going to be interesting to see. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful, and as always, this only represents my specific chip set to what it's currently set to. I get a lot of questions about, you know, from people being like, hey, the performance is inconsistent, it's not the same as what you have here, and it really just depends on your TDP. You know, my laptop specifically does not let me set the PL1 past 20 watts, so I can set it all the way to 30 watts if I wanted to, but that's only for the boost duration. After 128 seconds, it's going to drop down to 20 watts and stay there consistently. Like, right now you see 17, but really it's depending on what the CPU and the GPU both need. Here you can actually see how much resources are getting utilized by the actual game. Sometimes it did push the CPU all the way to the maximum. It was really demanding in some sections, just eating up so much RAM. It was kind of crazy to see all of that going on. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.